Sometimes it can take a long time to get your clay ready, so be prepared to have to condition it. This is what squishing it is referred to as conditioning. We stacked our pieces like this so that we could continue on and make the checkerboard. In order to make the checkerboard, what you have to do is you have to cut slices that are the same thickness as they are here. So I set this up on its end and I slice down. And if you're worried about your clay getting squished, you should really freeze this before you do it. Sometimes it helps if you want to go this direction too, because you get less likely that you're going to smush it as you go. And you want to have an even number of slices if you have an even number of stripes. So I've got red, black, and here I've got black, red. So what I do is it's essentially I flip it around. So you can start to see that there is a checkerboard that is forming. And I put it all back together. And it's pretty close. It's a little, I would say there's a little bit of difference in sizes of my pieces, so my checkerboard's not perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press this together, let it get a little firmer. The ends always end up looking a little mucky, and so you'll want to probably trim those off. But if I trim these down, then I cut a piece, you can see that there's my checkerboard design. And you can do as many stacks of stripes as you want. You just want to keep this convenient and easy to work with. Sometimes what I find too is if I'm starting to squish it, I'll turn it, and then at least I squish it in an opposite. I would lay them next to one another until I had created the full checkerboard experience. And sometimes you can stretch the clay out if you need to. Okay, so you have to take your log, which is your centerpiece, and your triangles and your round snakes, and stick them on around the outside of the log. And you do that by putting the triangle part in, and then the round one down, and then another one with the triangle part in. And you got to make sure that your thing in the middle is big enough so you can fit these all in. So you might have to actually stop and re-roll the centerpiece to make it bigger, because having gaps usually doesn't work very well. I'm just going to kind of give this a small squeeze to sort of help hold everything together, but I don't want to smash it. Can you start to see how there's a little flower shape right there? Now I got to take this part and see whether or not it's big enough to fit around. So I'm going to cut one end off straight, and then I'm rolling it, and I can see that it's not going to be big enough to go all the way around that. So hopefully I have enough red that I can roll. And honestly, since I probably don't, I'm going to use my black. Take my strip that I've cut and wrap it around my clay. Sometimes you might have to stretch it a little bit. And where it overlaps, I just trim off that extra little piece. And I take this and I roll it. And I keep rolling it. What is happening is it's getting longer, but smaller in diameter. That is called reducing the cane. And I know that we refer to this one as the candy cane, but they also refer to anything in which you've made some sort of a pattern or design into a cane. There are so many different tutorials online that you could go to. You could make flowers, you can roll it and you reduce your cane. You can start out with one size of a pattern or a design and then get it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and it stays the same. When I cut a roll, I like to roll the roll as I cut it, so that's less likely that I'm going to smush it. So sometimes I just press down and then I shape it back up. Oh, but there's my little flower shape because my colors are too close in color to be able to tell that it is actually what it's supposed to be. But I could continue to make this go smaller. I told you to save all the little leftover pieces. This is kind of a fun little thing to do. My little pieces. Now I could just take these and roll them, fold them, roll them, fold them, and I would have a neat sort of marbled piece that I could go ahead and flatten out and use. But what we're gonna do is we are going to make something that's referred to as an inside out bead. So I'm gonna take this and flatten it till it becomes a nice rectangle. And that's when I cut it in half. And if I push both those halves out, I get what looks like a mirror image. And then I could take those pieces and slice them off and have like a really neat looking design. Obviously you need to use higher contrast colors, so keep that in mind. That's what's going to make your I would suggest using whatever clay you have left to cover this up, using whatever techniques you want to practice with, or maybe you can find one on the internet that you want to use. But do your best to cover your entire jar. Have a clay touch clay so that when it bakes in the oven it'll harden up and attach to itself. And it'll attach to each part and then it'll stay together. And then post this on the internet. Now what you do to bake it is you preheat your oven to 265 to 275. Preheat your oven. Do not put this piece in there while the oven is heating up or it will burn. Piece in there, and they say to cook it for 15 minutes for each 1/4 inch. So this is pretty thin, but I usually put my pieces in for 15 minutes anyways. Take it out of the oven and just let it cool down. Remember that lighter colors will turn brown if they're left in too long, and you want to work on a piece of foil on your cookie sheet so that way you're not ruining any of your baking items. And again, if you have a bird, do not bake the clay with the bird in the house. Make sure you leave windows open while you're baking it. I mean, it's not going to kill you. I've been doing it for years, but it's a very safe and healthy way to approach this. You need to be able to put a video on showing me that you have candy cane, checkerboard, marbling, stripes, millefiori, blended color.